Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. This week, I've been benchmarking myself into an early grave, so I suppose nothing new there, but what made this week's efforts particularly futile was the new Star Wars Jedi Survivor patch, which meant I had to throw out well over 100 benchmark runs and just start over from scratch. But not to worry, I do have a plan, and before I tell you, a word about today's sponsor. Today's sponsor spot is brought to you by Skytech Gaming, a provider of pre-built gaming PCs in California. They offer lifetime technical support backed by well-trained customer support, and all their systems feature a 1-year parts warranty. One of their newest pre-builts is the Azure 2, which Skytech Gaming sent over for us to check out. This is a well put together PC that looks great, the BIOS has been tuned for optimal cooling and noise performance, and the cable management is extremely neat. It features the new GeForce RTX 4070 along with the Core i5-13600K, and this allows it to deliver impressive mid-range performance, while supporting all the latest and greatest features such as DLSS 3 frame generation, ray tracing, and AV1 encoding. So, to get the right PC built for you, check out the link in the video description. Okay, so rather than just delete several days of work, I've decided to take the data for 8 of the dozen or so GPUs that I've already tested, and then retest those same GPUs with the new patch, so I can provide you with an extremely detailed before and after performance analysis. So that's what we'll be doing. Now, the patch notes state that the update doesn't address performance with ray tracing enabled. So if you're unhappy with the frame rate you're receiving and you are using ray tracing, then disabling it should give you a much larger performance bump. There's loads of other fixes as well, covering all sorts of things from crashing, rendering issues, graphical glitches, and so on. The good news is the patch was delivered very quickly and does provide real performance gains in the game. They're also promising some more patches, so Star Wars Jedi Survivor hasn't been abandoned or put on the back burner. It looks like fixing the game is a high priority, so that's something positive to take away from this mess. Now, in my last Star Wars Jedi Survivor video, I noted some anecdotal evidence from our video editor Balin, who was playing the game using an Intel Core i9-13900K with an RTX 4090, and he was not having a fun time. His experience was plagued by constant stuttering, frame pauses you could almost say. Basically, it was unplayable in his opinion. However, after this latest patch, his frame rates have dramatically improved, and the stuttering has almost been eliminated entirely. In fact, he's only seeing the occasional stutter when exiting cutscenes. So I wouldn't claim the stuttering issues have been solved entirely, but hopefully for those of you who were suffering from really bad stuttering issues like Balin, it's now a lot better. Now for my testing, I've got a Superstar Destroyer's worth of data for you. I've tested 8 GPUs with and without the Day 3 patch, using 4 quality configurations, 3 resolutions, and 2 different test passes within the game. And I should note I've also closed and then reloaded the game between graphical changes, and I've had to play on 6 different EA player accounts to the 10% mark for the testing in Koboh. Anyway, it's taken a stupid amount of time, so let's get into it. Starting with the ray tracing results, which aren't meant to be improved with this update, we see that for the most part, that's correct. I did have some issues with the RTX 3070 with ray tracing enabled previously. I'm not sure if that was a bug or what really was going on there, but with the update, it is now performing as expected. The RDNA 3 GPUs though, they still suck with ray tracing enabled. Basically, the 6950 XT is as fast or really faster than the 7900 XTX, at least at 1080p. Moving to 1440p, we again find that the 6950 XT is able to edge out the 7900 XTX, so some work needs to be done at the driver level for RDNA 3, which is disappointing to see in an AMD-sponsored title. The RTX 3070 also saw a small improvement here, though it is still only 17% faster than the 6700 XT with RT enabled. The RTX 4090 is also heavily CPU limited at 101 FPS, which is disappointing to see, but again, performance for the most part hasn't been addressed with ray tracing enabled. Now, 4K, the RDNA 3 GPUs are able to pull well ahead of the 6950 XT, and the 7900 XTX is roughly on par with the RTX 4080, but of course, the 4090 is king here. Okay, so let's check out the Epic quality settings, which are meant to see a performance improvement, and oh boy, do they ever. We are still heavily CPU limited with the higher end GPUs at 1080p, but whereas the 7900 XTX maxed out at just 109 FPS previously, it's now hitting 156 FPS, and that's a massive 43% gain. It's a similar story for the 7900 XT, and we're also seeing a 42% increase for the 6950 XT. That said, if your hardware configuration was previously GPU limited, like what we see with the 6950 XT, then performance on Coruscant won't be improved. But if you enable FSR or lower quality settings, you will now see a big improvement, whereas previously you wouldn't have, and we will look at that in a moment. On the Nvidia side of things, we are seeing a massive 58% boost for the RTX 4090 with the new patch, hitting 160 FPS, and now the GeForce driver overhead appears to be a non-issue, at least for these quality settings. And of course with this CPU, the 7800X3D. The previous generation RTX 3090 Ti also saw a massive 65% boost, and we're even seeing a 14% increase for the average frame rate for the RTX 3070, and a rather substantial 25% improvement to the 1% lows, suggesting that frame time performance has also been improved here. Now, increasing the resolution to 1440p does increase GPU load, and therefore performance for the most part does become GPU bound. So parts like the 7900 XT, 6950 XT, 6700 XT, and the RTX 3070 saw very little in the way of performance gains. The 7900 XTX still saw a 23% boost, but the gains were more common with GeForce GPUs, likely due to the overhead issue as the game was far more CPU limited prior to this latest patch. In any case, the RTX 4090 saw a 53% performance boost at 1440p, 25% for the RTX 4080, and even a 25% boost for the RTX 3090 Ti, so some great improvements here for GeForce owners. Then at 4K, we're only seeing a 1 to 2 FPS improvement for the 7900 XT and XTX, as we're obviously very CPU limited here. That said, we're still looking at some big performance improvements for GeForce owners, particularly for those of you with a 4080 or 4090. The 4080's average frame rate was boosted by 12% with a massive 27% improvement for the 1% lows. The 4090 also enjoyed a 9% gain, and that meant it was now 40% faster than the 7900 XTX, though the Radeon GPU did edge out its competitor, the RTX 4080. Now with the slightly dialed down high preset, we're again seeing strong performance gains for the higher end Radeon and GeForce GPUs. The Radeon GPUs are up to 8% faster under these more CPU limited conditions, and again, this will be a GeForce driver overhead issue. It's crazy to see a 74% performance boost for the 7900 XT in this testing, and a 75% increase for the RTX 4080. As for the lower end GPUs tested, the 6700 XT only saw a 6% boost to the average frame rate, but the 1% lows were improved by a much more substantial 20%, so the game should be running a lot smoother now for those of you with more mid-range previous generation GPUs. The RTX 3070, which was heavily CPU limited previously, is now 38% faster, averaging 116 FPS, which is a much nicer experience for those of you with high refresh rate monitors. The 1440p data has some interesting results for us. Previously, the 6950 XT was faster than both the 7900 XT and XTX, but after the patch, the 7900 XT is now 15% faster, and the XTX 38% faster. Having said all of that though, those of you using slower GPUs, such as the 6700 XT, you won't see any performance improvements with the new patch under these test conditions. The RTX 3070 though did see a mild 9% gain, while the 3090 Ti was 39% faster, and the RTX 4080 a whopping 58% faster. Then at 4K, we are mostly GPU limited in our testing, with the only Radeon GPU to see an improvement being the 7900 XTX, which is now 9% faster. The RTX 4080 on the other hand, that saw a smaller 7% gain, making the 7900 XTX slightly faster overall. And then for those of you with the mighty RTX 4090, you should be seeing around a 17% boost when using the high preset at 4K. The last set of results taken on Coruscant use the medium preset, and these results will be good news for those of you with lower end GPUs, especially if you have a half decent CPU. That said, these optimizations likely also really help lower end CPUs as well. Here the 6700 XT is now 39% faster, and the RTX 3070 an incredible 67% faster, hitting 140 FPS, so a totally different experience there. Basically, the RTX 3070 is now much faster than what you would have experienced previously with an RTX 4090, 44% faster, so that's pretty crazy. Okay, so let's move over to Koboh, the second planet in the game if you will, and it's here that we found CPU performance to be much better in our previous testing. Or at least the section we were using for testing was less CPU bound. Using ray tracing with the higher preset, we see no change in performance for the Radeon GPUs outside of a frame or two, and it's much the same with the GeForce GPUs, though the RTX 4090 did see a 9% increase for the average frame rate, and a fairly large 21% boost to the 1% lows. Interestingly, at 1440p, the 7900 XTX saw a 3 to 6% boost, and the RTX 4090 a 3% boost, while performance between the two versions of the game remained much the same for all other GPUs tested. Then at 4K, we see a slight improvement, 1% lows for the 1700 XTX and a big 18% improvement for the RTX 4090. But outside of that, the results are all much the same between the two versions of the game. Now, using the Epic quality preset doesn't deliver the huge performance gains we saw in Coruscant, and again, that's because CPU limited performance wasn't nearly as broken for a Koboh test. So for the most part, I wouldn't expect to see notable performance gains here. That said, the RTX 4090 did enjoy a big 23% improvement to the 1% lows at 1440p, but again, apart from that, the rest of the results are much the same. Then at 4K, the 1% lows of the RTX 4090 remained quite weak for this latest patch. The 1700 XTX saw a mild 8% gain, but outside of that, the results were all much the same. And it's a similar story when using the high quality preset, so I'm not going to waste your time poring over all of this data. Instead, we'll cycle through the 1080p, 1440p and 4K data for you, and then we'll just move on. But feel free to pause at any point if you want to take a closer look at these results. And here's the medium quality data from Koboh. The game has a 200 FPS hard cap, and most of the GPUs tested can reach this with the 7800X3D at 1080p. But it is worth noting that although the average frame rate for the 6700 XT was much the same with the latest patch, the 1% lows were boosted by 14%, so that's a good improvement. At 1440p, only the fastest GPUs can still hit that 200 FPS cap, but other than that, there's really no difference between the two versions of the game. Therefore, you can expect to see much the same at 4K, and that is indeed the case, outside of a small gain for the 1700 XTX's average frame rate and the 1% lows of the 4090. So performance here was really much the same. So there you have it. The update offers up to 75% more performance on Coruscant, and likely other areas of the game where performance was pretty poor previously. And not all the areas, though, will see a performance boost, and not all hardware configurations will either, but there's a good chance that turning down the visual quality settings or enabling FSR will now boost frame rates, so that is indeed good news for gamers. Ideally, the game should have launched with this patch, and even then, there's still a lot that needs to be fixed, and I'm sure many of you will still see some stuttering issues, though hopefully it will be much improved. The game's menu system still sucks to navigate with the keyboard and mouse, and the game's use of DRM is still detrimental to those of you who actually pay for it, so that's just annoying. Still, it is great to see real improvements coming so quickly, even if the issues should have never been present to begin with. So I guess what I'm saying is, we are glad to see some support. It is an EA game after all. And really, it's not all negative. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is a very good game. It's loads of fun, the storytelling is excellent, the gameplay is of high quality, the combat is very good, and the visuals are seriously impressive. So it's a real shame that what is fundamentally a very high quality game has been spoilt by performance issues, and hopefully that can be corrected in a timely manner, and this first patch is certainly a step in the right direction. I'm still working on a big GPU benchmark for this game, but again, the 5 hardware change lockout for 24 hours is making it extremely difficult, and these DRM methods used by EA are why you don't see too many reviewers testing with games like Battlefield 2042, for example. It's just not practical or even feasible for most reviewers. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up our patch update benchmark here. I hope you guys enjoyed the extensive testing, and if you did, make sure you like, subscribe, do that stuff. And if you'd like to support our work and get some cool perks in return, we have Floatplane Patreon. You get access to some pretty cool stuff. We have an exclusive Discord server for members only, monthly live stream for members only, Q&A stuff, behind the scenes content, a lot of cool things there. So if you're interested, check it out. But if not, that's perfectly fine. And I would like to thank you for watching this video. I'm your host, Steve. See you again next time.